Welcome Bo Ømosegaard to Bank of Badminton.
Thank you.
What are your job?
Well, I'm responsible of the talent development in the Danish Badminton Association, working with the general strategy and the general principles, and overseeing that what our national youth coaches are doing is according to our plan and strategy, and helping out and so on.
You're bringing a big squad to this tournament. What do you say about the tournament?
The tournament? Yeah, it's. I think we have been here for many years, so from our point of view, it's a very good tournament, and especially it's very good for the young kids, the under 13s and under 15s, where we are sending our national team. Compared to some years ago, we see less German and English and so on players, but for our young players under 13, 15, it's a very good tournament. And then it's close to Denmark, which also is very handy when it comes to that.
Is it the best players you have here?
The under 13 we have the top group, and the under 15 we have the group just beneath the best players. Our best under 15 players, we sent them to Langenfeld 2 weeks ago, and then the selection from number 7 to number 12, we take them here to Malmö.
We've seen big success for the young players in Denmark, like Victor Axelsen, of course. How is the future looking for Danish badminton?
Well, I think it's looking pretty good. I mean, when we are talking about the future perspectives in Denmark, we are talking about how on earth we can beat the Chinese and some of them. And I think at the moment we are closing in on the Chinese. They are still the best by far, but I think we are closing the gap. And one of the things we are focusing on, our main strategy, is to narrow the gap in the under 19. When, if you look back some years ago, we could win some world titles for seniors, but when it came to the world juniors, we were very, very far away, and the best we were hoping for was to reach the quarterfinals. This year in Mexico, last year in Mexico, we had tremendous success winning with Victor Axelsen being number 1, but we also had bronze medals in the men's doubles and the ladies doubles, and we were also very close in the mixed. And that's part of the strategy to close in the gap there. And from that point of view, it's for the moment looking pretty good.
What are the biggest differences in strategies? Before it was quarterfinals, and now you're almost the top.
Our analysis is that there are huge differences from a cultural point of view between the Asian countries and the Danish and European countries. And one of the things is that you are pushing in Asia, you are pushing the young players much farther. You're pushing. The number of training hours they have is much higher than we have in Denmark. You know, we have this rule of thumb of saying you need 10,000 hours of quality practice to be able to compete on a world level. And I made a calculation on how old were the Chinese players and how old were the Danish players when they have reached this 10,000 hours of quality practice. And my rough calculation came to the fact that the Danish players, they were about 26, 27, 28 years of age when they have reached the 10,000 hours. When you look at the Asian players, they were no older than 18, 19 years of age. And that's a huge difference, being having those number of hours when you're 18 and all your senior career ahead of you, or you're 26, 27 in Denmark, and you then need to focus on your civil career, your family life, and how many years without injuries do you have ahead of you at a top level when you're at 26. So our main strategy was that we would increase the number of training hours for our young players. That's one of the things. And the other thing is that if we should ever be able to beat or compete with the Chinese, we must be better in the quality of the practice, of the training. So that's the two things. But we will never be able to beat them on the number of training hours, but we have to increase the number of training hours. So in 2006 I set up some criteria for being a Danish underage elite player and then be selected to the national squad. We have about 120 players in our elite squads for the under 13, 15, 17 and 19s. And we have a certain number of training criteria you must meet before you will be considered for selection. If you're under 17, for instance, you must do on average 2 times strength training a week. You must do 2 times of aerobic training a week. You must be 8 hours training in the hall, hitting shuttles on group training basis, and you must do at least 1 training unit per week with individual training. And you have to do that on a yearly basis, year-round basis. So the old-fashioned thing in Denmark about you're training hard from September to April, and then doing very little in the summer period. We got rid of that. So what happened in Mexico, from my point of view, that was the first time we saw this new generation having been training many more hours from the age of under 13 all the way up to under 19, and suddenly we were able to compete. So that was, from our point of view, the big difference compared to earlier. Then we of course have a huge talent in a 20-year period with Victor Axelsen, and he won this senior title, his singles title as an under 17. Absolutely amazing, and probably he would get close to winning medals no matter what. But now, because he has also done that high number of training hours, he was able to compete in the age of under 18, 17.
But if you're absolutely top level and you don't fill the criteria that you had, you're not allowed to play in the national squad.
You're not selected, no. Simple as that.
That's
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked before about your criteria for to come into the national squad. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we are working on the basis of development potential. When you're a young player, it's a big advantage of being physically strong. And if you're a young player, you can be physically strong mainly because you're an early mature, which means you go into puberty very early, you grow fast, you get strong, and we can see just the fact of being strong win matches for you. But what we think, and we know scientific research has shown that as well, is that you have certain critical periods in your development as a person, and we have and very up to before puberty, it's very important that you develop all those technical skills about the stroke technique, about the footwork technique, and so on. And it's absolutely necessary that you learn those techniques very well, because you will not be able to compete with the Chinese if you don't have those technical skills. The old-fashioned badminton style of running, you don't win medals on that anymore. You did in the old days, but you do not anymore. So it's very important for us to see that in under 11, 13, 15, you're focused very much on the technical development. And then when you have some good technical basis, we are focusing a lot on developing the tactical skills. But first the technical skills and the basic motor pattern things for your body. And then, technical skills, then tactical skills. It's not that you have one thing and then you stop technical development, but you have focus on technical development, and then you have the tactical. And all besides, you have this physical training as well, because you need to do some physical training for injury prevention, and getting your body ready for when you go into puberty, when you have reached this point of peak height velocity where you are growing the most in your puberty period. When you are 1 year past that peak height velocity period, then we can focus a lot on physical training. But you need to prepare your body for that. Otherwise you would get injured. You cannot start out. So we are focusing very much on need to have this technical, tactical and physical basis in the younger years.
Just thinking on, you have mentioned it quite some times already, but if you were to choose one thing, what's the most important to focus on when you're educating talents, when they are quite young? What do you think is the main priority?
It depends on the age, but if we're talking about the under 13, we have a rule of thumb that when you're under 13, the very basic technical stuff must be okay. It does not necessarily have to look very elegant, but it must be efficient and make sure that you can develop your technical skills on top of that. So the technical skills and good training practice, being able to focus on when you're training and so on. That's the most important thing when you're under 13. The thing about winning matches, of course important you practice that, but that's not the most important thing. Because when we are focusing on this development potential selection criteria, we often see that sometimes we have players in our elite group which will be beaten by players outside our elite group mainly because they're stronger and bigger. Which happened in the match we just saw. Yeah, and of course it could be a little bit odd, and parents then think, oh, you have made a mistake, you should select the strongest kid. But it's about having the experience and know what we're looking for.
But if you say that you have under 17 championship for European or worlds, just European, we say, and you have this very early developed player who's really strong and he's absolutely the best in Denmark, but he hasn't got the technical skills that you search for and what you believe in. You don't pick him for trying to win medals for Denmark either?
We have one tournament in our underage schools where we go for the best team, and that's the under 19 Europeans. For that team, normally we would send like 6 boys and 6 girls, and I would guess 4 or 5 boys, girls, that would be from point of view that should be the strongest. But 1 or 2 of the players will be picked on development potential and looking forward. But for instance, sending a team to the World Juniors, we are not sending the best players necessarily. If the best player, we say that he is good as a young player, but he will never develop into a world elite senior, we would never go there. We will always, when we select for the World Juniors, we typically have a squad where we have the best players, those who can compete, and then 1, 2, 3 of the players would be under 17, and maybe not be able to win medals at all, but they will get the experience and so on.
Because it's interesting, because that's one thing that I suppose you can do in Denmark when you're showing the crowd and the people that you are producing good level players.
Yeah.
But if we take example like Sweden, who doesn't have a world-class player, how do you stand against the crowd that says you're not picking out the right? Of course, it's a hard question for you to ask because you're not in the situation, but do you understand what I mean?
I understand. I have been national coach in Ireland, and you have the same problems. But even in Denmark, we have people asking questions. Are you nuts or what? Since you're selecting players like that, and it's about the first very important thing is to communicate the principle. To communicate what are the selection criteria here and why. And then you need to communicate that time after time after time. Every year you have a new group of parents, for instance, for the under 13, which cannot understand why their kids are not picked because they are winning all the matches. So, but I think, from my point of view, you must do it. You must take that selection criteria, and you must communicate why you're doing it. Because what happens if you're only selecting the tall, strong players is that you will have players that are doing well when they are young players. But if you're only selecting them, you run the risk of having players, they are physically strong, they are not making many mistakes when they're playing, they are moving the shuttle very fine around the court, and they will do it with only a small repertoire, which means that they will use, say, the clear, the drop, the net drop, and the smash, not all those deceptive strokes and so on. And when they grow up into seniors, maybe they will still be a good Danish player or a good Swedish player at senior level. But European champions, never. And on the world ranking list, top 15, not in 100 years. So I think if you are sticking to these criteria of selecting only the strongest players, you'll never get there.